Trying to reach my sword. Wait a minute, he's never ridden a motorbike before. I can tell.
I know, right?
Yes, and they just gave me, then they gave me motorbikes.
Hello, Antonia. Good to see you.
You missed the days when you didn't ask me.
Yeah.
Golden pages, yeah. Yes.
Hey guys, how are we? Hello and welcome to the 699th Ovale. So first, a couple of announcements. So this event is recorded and will be available to revisit as an MP3 podcast and on video via Ovale's website, social media and Vimeo channels, which is vimeo.com/Ovale. So the evening is going to have 4 parts. The first part is going to be the poetry film, which actually that's already happened. Sorry, I'm just reading it straight off here. So where we're at now is we're at the 5-word challenge. And after the 5-word challenge, we'll have our guest poets. So this week we have Victoria, Adukwei, Bulley, and we also have Joseph Horgan. So this is going to be a hybrid session. So Victoria is going to join us on Zoom over here. Hi guys, how are we all doing on the internet? And then after the guest poets, we will have an open mic. We're going to have a small break as well. So the 5-word challenge for anyone who hasn't been before. Do we have anyone who's unfamiliar with Ovale? We got a couple of brand new heads. Lovely to meet you guys. So the 5-word challenge is a writing game we always kick the night off with. So the audience will yell out 5 words, and the first 5, and it says here in italics, acceptable words. The first 5 acceptable words are going to be incorporated into poems by everybody in the audience. So you'll have 10-15 minutes to put your poems together. and then the brave will come up here and read them over the microphone, and the clapometer is going to determine the best poem, and the best poem is going to come back up and read their poem one more time and collect a point and a book. So without further ado, can we get some words, ladies and gentlemen?
Okay, we've got ectomies from Aaron Campbell.
Ectomies.
E-C-T-O-M-I-E-S.
Ectomies. E-C-T-O-M-I-E-S. Could you please ask Pam to explain that? Pam, could you give us a definition for ectomies, please, and thank you. Also, hello.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me okay? Oh, you can. Okay. Ectomy or ectomies is a shortened version of the word that goes with hysterectomy, appendectomy. It's the taking away of something. Does that work?
Cool. I see you've put an ectomy on the prefix. Nice one. Cool. So ectomies, we're going to roll with that.
Okay.
Have a portfolio from Jack.
Portfolio. Anybody in the room then? So we've ectomies, portfolio. 70. Anybody else?
Willem.
Willem.
Willem. W-H-I-L-O-M.
W-I. Could you spell that for me one more time, please?
W-H-I-L-O-M.
W-H-I-L-O-M. Now that's a beautiful word I've never heard before.
It was once, so you say
Willem.
my Willem friend.
Fantastic.
Who was my friend before?
That's a word and a half now. Willem. W-H-I-L-O-M.
Yeah.
Willem.
Or you could say our Willem enemies, people we were enemies with before. No, so.
Fantastic. So the definition of Willem is something that was once. Willem. W-H-I-L-O-M. This is a rare collection of words, lads. What's next? Like dog. Run. Fire truck. Whispers. We have whisper from Phil Spillane. So those words altogether are ectomies. We have Willem. We have a portfolio. And we have 70 and whisper. 70. 7-0. Gotcha. All right, guys. So we will have a little bit of respectful silence for 10, 15-ish minutes while we put our poems together. Okay, so we're getting on. I see a lot of pens moving. I was about a 3-minute warning for you. All right, guys, who wants to be first? Anyone feeling brave? Was that a maybe? No? We got Phil Spillane, do we? Massive round of applause for Phil Spillane, ladies and gents.
There's a lot of scribbles or writing, but we'll give it a go anyway. It's about schizophrenia. I had 70 imaginary friends, and the one I missed most was ectomies, in which I did not know the meaning, and I still don't know today. Its portfolio was a shadow of many colors, strands of translucent sunsets, in which it snared and plucked to generate whispers. Those lullabies brought me to sleep. I will 'em those times, and I miss them. It's gone with the will and the wisp. Thanks.
And anybody else, guys? And if you could just say your name when you come up to the mic, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Cool, that's fantastic. We're going to go to Maggie online.
Hi. This 70 Willem portfolio eczema in a whisper. There you go. Short.
Thank you, Maggie. That was incisive. So who's coming up next? We've got Antonio. Anthony, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hi. So, thank you. Thanks. This poem is called "The Voices of Wood." Once the brown of the wood was alive, a breathing plant, and ectomies of roots. 70 years ago, a whisper in the forest, Willem of discovery. The sounds and the voices of the wood were recorded in a portfolio of seasons and taken away by the song of the sea. Cheers. Thank you.
So we're going to Jeff Cottrell. Hi, Jeff. How are we getting on? What's the crack?
Hey there. Okay, here's mine. There was a group of 70 ladies who feared that their looks had come straight from Hades. They went to a plastic surgeon for ectomies to remove excess fat from their necks and tummies. They went to the cheapest doc they could get, a rash decision they soon would regret. It turned out the man had a thin portfolio of qualifications. Experience? No. Leo Smith was his name, and he was a Willem surgeon. As far as liposuction, he was a virgin. These days, he revealed in a whisper to friends, Dr. Smith made his income from stock dividends. And that is why we know 70 ladies whose faces and bodies are racked with deformities. I think that needs a little work.
Thanks, Jeff. I feel the spirit of it is definitely there anyway. So who's up next, guys? Fantastic. If you could just say your magic. And if everyone could say their name into the microphone when they come up, that would be absolutely magic. Thank you.
I'm Alison. Lovectomy. She whispered words in English I'd never heard before, explained this the essence of exchange as she relayed each meaning. I didn't think she made a jot of sense, so I eased my arm away where her fingers like a hairy body with 70 or 100 legs feathered my skin. I looked over the side of the bed, reached for my portfolio of Willem love poems, said, darling, this is a lovectomy, and I must write my final poem.
Thank you so much, Alison. That was awesome. Next up, we have Sue Blue.
Might as well stay up. Okay, I'll see what comes out. Still here. To bind the mind to find sense in a collection of words, when the memory lingers in whispers of new love from the hearts of old lovers. My portfolio of princes pales with Willem tenderness, but yours, ours, has returned from its ectomy in the past. Our chasms sent us long lost, alone on winding paths, split with longing for that close bond that now we have found again. Old love is not lost to reviving and living out its spark. Today, across the ocean, and again we wave over the waters. Cohen's longing echoes with words long gone to sleep. 70 miles on a train is not far enough to keep yearning. We bridge land and sea as we have always done, crossing a universe to hear our stars laugh like bells.
Julie Go. A portfolio of Willem lovers, 70-page photo album. I whisper each of their names to my voodoo doll, summon herpes, hysterectomies, and incontinence. I live happily ever after.
I'm Nate Van Sweden. This is titled Echo to Dad, describing his fading in a poem he's left on my desk. 73 rotations, all dodging ectomies, 47 shared. An incomplete portfolio of memories. More time, I whisper. Willem young Jim shimmers and dims to softening James as his granddaughters chant, Baba, Baba.
Adrian. Segmented maps collect on the floor like organs cut out of the land around us. So many ectomies. First, it's the spleen that had the line of a nice country road. We once stopped there for good soup and a fire on a cold afternoon. Then it's its foot, where we talked away quietly in the dark. How many lives spent walking over hills or through stands of trees no longer there? I came across a stand of spruce, and there's not a bird sound anywhere. No one calls this home. In their straight rows, they are like someone who I once had an easy silence with, now hooked up to beeping machines. Where have you gone, Willem friends? You may whisper, but I cannot hear you. Someone will tell me to repeat it. And again, 70 multiplied 7 times. Someone else collects the maps, puts them in a smooth portfolio. We try to describe the soup on the road, and we disagree on the details.
Jen is my name. He spends 70 hours every week inside his shed, his white head bent under the eaves, beneath the soft leaves of a weeping willow. His growing portfolio, bone and marrow, charcoal, all of it remembering his Willem love. Down where she still breathes in trees and brushing grasses, sweeps away from the house where strangers rearrange beige furnishings, keep his diary. Yes, she lives, his love, whispers up from earth in sequences he maps on walls, in journals. She crawls through him and out again. Shapes, from their first ecstasies to the ectomies across their bodies, a breast lost, a testicle, war wounds of the brave and ageless. For 70 hours, every week, a life worth repeating.
Noisy lads, these are amazing. It's going to be incredibly hard to judge. We're going to go on Zoom to Pam Campbell. Be there, Pam.
Okay. Okay. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay. The ectomies whispered in one right after another, carved blue-red scored landscape, a portfolio of learning, new hardship, new words, new sounds, new meanings. Willem friends harvested, microdectomy, lumpectomy, lymphadenectomy, bilateral salpingo oophorectomy. Is that a flower? Total hysterectomy and appendectomy.
just had to get on the bandwagon. Stemmed slow drip, tumor shedding death. I whisper 77 times, forgive me, old friends. Thank you.
There's some poems out there, I know there is. Who we got? Magic.
Also Adrian. 70, just 70, but slipping away like drawn out ectomies. A whilom man, a whisper of his former self, a life in a slim portfolio falling shut.
Cedric. On his 17th birthday, gloomy as ever, Stephen whispers to himself with the same thought as always. Travels, discoveries, and all the drama to come with it, of whilom friends, future adventures. He dreams to change his life entirely, commit his own ectomy socially, excise all connection in the precise motion of absence. He wants to go to those places drawn, filling his portfolio. Stephen simply wishes to grow.
I saw a lot of pens moving. I think this might be some over here. Anybody? Anybody feeling brave? Rock and roll, Magic.
Thank you. Luna. I walk through a macabre avenue of scorched oaks, their arms akimbo, rooks cawing, cackling at the sight. 70, a caricature carrying a portfolio full of hope, feathers, whispering of possibility. Recently ectomized, but shackled by an army of whilloms, more enemies than friends. Who was going to give her a chance? If hope is a thing with feathers, she was bald as a coot.
Next up, I think we have Ben Burns, do we? Magic.
Sorry about this. It was the words.
Promising intro.
Lord Wilhelm spent the last days of his 70s whispering a list of prefixes to follow the suffix ectomies to his whilom testes post-orchiectomy. Bunionectomy, colectomy, isovectomy, hysterectomy. The bobbing pair of whilom ball bags floated indifferently in a jar of formalin as William hissed more and more passionately this vast portfolio of surgical removals. Lobectomy, photorefractive correctomy, splenectomy, vasectomy. Words of consolation.
Hello, Rory. As I lie reflecting on my portfolio of pretense, counting down as I go to the last pulmonary palpitation. After ectomies upon ectomies of friend, foe, and phalange, my Willem soul begins to whisper. Look in the mirror and tell me how so. A pusher, a waster, a troublemaker, made it to 70 without so much as a mate. I replied, that's showbiz, baby. All right, thank you.
Have we come to the end? Is that every poem in the room, or is there one more? Catherine Ronan.
What's the words? You raged in like a whisper, lined like a 70-year-old, slinky as a serpent, tongue as forked as lightning, a portfolio, thicker than the Bible. It was to be a summer of ectomies. When you shone, it was the brightest sun. When you darkened, it was a black night of footsteps in the alley. I wish you were a Willem, a once were, once before, but you are today, tomorrow, and yesterday yet to come.
That feels like it's surely everybody. Nice one. Okay, this is the difficult part. That was tricky. There were some freaking amazing poems in there. So I'm torn between two. And I'd like to do the clapometer again if I could. For the first Adrian and Ben Burns. So okay. I'm gonna go with the first Adrian. That was a fabulous, beautiful poem.
Thank you. I guess I'll read, hopefully be able to read my writing this time. I lost it. Sorry. Segmented maps collect on the floor like organs cut out of the land around us. So many ectomies. First, it's its spleen that had the line of a nice country road. We once stopped there for good soup and a fire on a cold afternoon. Then its foot, where we talked away quietly in the dark. How many lives spent walking over hills or through stands of trees no longer there? I came across a stand of spruce, and there is not a bird sound anywhere. No one calls this home. In their straight rows, they are like someone who I once had an easy silence with, now hooked up to beeping machines. Where have you gone, Willem friends? You may whisper, but I cannot hear you. Someone will tell me to repeat it, and again, 70 multiplied by 7 times. Someone else collects the maps, puts them in a smooth portfolio. We try to describe the soup and the road, and we disagree on the details.
Okay, so how are we? So we're gonna have a 5-10 minute break, and then we're gonna come back in here, and we're gonna have our 2 guest poets, which are Victoria Adukwei Bulley, and also Joseph Horgan. Alright, cool. See you guys in 5-10.
It's just like, it's kind of, it's awesome to, you know, like when you give a hard word, it's awesome to like put it yourself.
Do you want to drink
Great word. It's a very specific word, like it means exactly, it's a word made for emotion. It's like a word I can't whisper. Oh, I missed it. Sexual sentence. I once upon a time. One word.
So guys, I'm going to pass around the open mic list while we have this short break. So if anybody wants to read later, you can put your name on the list up here. Oh, there's an actual open mic list.
Oh,
thank you, volunteers.
So, my name here.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Cheers.
You're very something rather than everything.
Alright guys, how are we? So that is the end of our break. That was a long, about 10 minutes I think. So we're going to go to our guest readers. So first we have a couple of housekeeping announcements, bits and bobs to run through, and then we will meet Victoria, Adukwei, Bulley on Zoom. So a couple of little prerequisites. Ovale aims to maintain a safe space for writers and all attendees We subscribe to the Arts Council's Equality, Human Rights and Diversity Policy, and we ask participants to report any offensive behaviour to OVAIL. So the 12th 5 Words International Poetry Competition, words change tomorrow at 12 p.m. Your little sneak preview is the words for 9th and 16th of July, and the 2025 judge is Lauren O'Donovan. So our words today are ruthless, glue, pause, gut, and groan. That is ruthless, glue, pause, gut, and groan. Perfecto. Okay, so the 12th OVAIL International Poetry Film Competition is open for submissions since the 1st of May. You can find more details at www.ovail.ie. Please be aware that this event is recorded and will be available to revisit as an MP3 podcast and on video via OVAIL's website, social media, and Vimeo channels. Also, an announcement from Clon. This Wednesday, the 10th of July, Dabara's Spoken Word is hosting the launch of Swerve magazine with readers and an open mic. So if you're in Clonakilty on Wednesday, the 10th of July, do swing down to Dabara's. So our featured guests on Monday, the 12th of August, for our annual Twin Cities event are Coventry poets Anne Atkins and Amy Rugg. Myself and Sue Blue went over, we met Anne Atkins there in November, had a lovely time. All are welcome to attend in person or online. If you'd like to participate via Zoom, please email info@ovail.ie. So thank you to everyone who's kindly offered donations. Donation jar is near the door. PayPal donations can be made via the link above the live poetry stage on our website or via our contact page at www.ovail.ie/blog/contact-us. Okay, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce on Zoom Victoria Adukwei Bulley. How are you, Victoria? Lovely to meet you.
Hi,
So Victoria Adukwei Bulley is a poet, writer and artist whose work has appeared widely in publications including the London Review of Books, Lit Hub and The Atlantic. She is the winner of an Eric Gregory Award, and her critically acclaimed debut poetry book, Quiet, won the Polio Prize for Poetry, the John Pollard International Poetry Prize, was shortlisted for the T.S. Eliot Prize. I should probably tell you guys, Quiet is in block capital letters. Quiet is published by Faber and Faber in the UK and in North America by Alfred A. Knopf. Actually, I have a copy of it here and it's in regular typeface. So that was just a quirk of the bio in front of me. But you can pick up a copy of this, and this is for our friends on Zoom, on the internet there, if you look up Quiet. Okay, guys, thank you so much.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be able to join you. It's really strange watching you all be in a public space, but being in a in my own home. It's kind of confusing for me. But yeah, I'm really happy that I was invited. So thank you, Paul, for inviting me. And yeah, I hope you've all had a really good evening. There is a baby sleeping in this apartment, and hopefully he will not wake up within the next 20 minutes. But if he does, we'll deal with it. Anyway, I'm going to read some poems from Quiet. I'm really glad that you got to see the Faber edition because I don't have that one right now. I have the US one, which looks like this, which does have the block capitals. But yeah, I'm going to begin where I always begin, which is right at the start of the book, the first poem. Declaration. If sickness begins in the gut, if I live in the belly of the beast, if here at the heart of empire, if careful in the house of the host, if quiet at the hearth of the host, if here at the home of empire, if I live in the belly of the beast, let me beget sickness in its gut. Lost belonging. I left my bag on the train, under the table, forgot it, looking at the sun as I rolled home into the city. Gold was spilling from the frame of a skyscraper, and it looked like a fire, but it was only nature reflecting off of steel. It was nature, at it again, refracting from the metals of this skin that we have grown so lately. Everything is going to break, and I must get home before it does, or doesn't yet, or buckles. Back to the locked shut door, to the batteries, plus, minus, all dashed from the clock, and the blinds closed tight, a millipede of stinging eyes, red light crashing through, from the place behind them. Mother, where else can I go? "15. Sorry, neighbours. Not the baby though. 15. With his hopscotch grid for a wrist, see my blue boy with a smile like a one-string guitar, relative to nobody, dropping out of school, out of line, saying, I love you more than life itself, in a first Valentine's card, during the term in which we turn 15. In the attic of an old phone now, here he is again, in the drawer I was emptying during a hymn I was singing before I met him, and here he is, my blue boy. Now, watch this older girl stop and throw her day out with the dust and turn blue too. This whole impermanence thing is deceptive, looks lifelong, actually, to me. Still stuck here, moulding mason jars of words to preserve him with. Wondering if a poem 10 years on is still a pining, asking how many more I'll make, having learned at last how little of us keeps. It's quite a strange experience, which I'm enjoying actually, reading work after not having been in the mindset of that work for quite some time. And it's funny in the sense that, so the book, the PhD that this book comprises part of, I'm still finishing it. A lot of life happened, so it's taken me a minute, but yeah, it's weird reading poems and having had a bit of distance between when they were written and now. And actually, what I like about it is that I've been waiting to look at these poems, perhaps like a stranger. I could never be a stranger to these poems, but it's nice to get some distance. It's nice to feel that, it's nice to get some distance and still think, oh, okay, yeah, it's not rubbish. It could be better, but it's not rubbish. Anyway, this next poem is deserves some kind of introduction. Firstly, because I wrote this one in a workshop with a friend of mine who we lost last year, called Boyega Odubanjo. His book has actually just came out. His book has actually just come out with Faber all of about 4 days ago. It's a fantastic book. It's called Adam. But yeah, this poem came out of a workshop with Boyega, and I'm so happy that he can be in this book in that way. And also, I think important to say that Palestine lives in this book, and I'm thinking very much about Gaza and what's happening there at the moment and how unending that is. So this poem is called Not Quiet as in quiet, but not quiet as in quiet, but as in peaceful. as in slow to anger, as in shy, as in sulking or sullen, as in nice, as in clean, tree-lined streets, as in well-resourced libraries, as in good, outstanding schools, as in not much new, as in no news is good news, as in the war is over, has been for decades now. As in early to bed, curled up with a book, as in the newborn is sleeping, as in TV barely audible, as in subtitles, as in subtext, as in someone should have done something, as in don't just do something, stand there, as in could and should but wouldn't, as in, well, the British are so polite, as in placid, as in placated, as in nuanced, complicated, as in careful. It's a conflict, not a siege, a conflict, as in objective, as in both sides, as in well behaved, as in safe, as in too quiet, as in almost silent, as in almost no sirens. About Anna. The truth is, nobody knows how Anna Mendieta met her death. It would appear she was pushed. Some distance below, the doorman said he heard a woman shout, "No," and then the sound as her body hit the top of the deli, so hard her face left a mark like a metal stamp. In the photo, she is naked and feathered. She looks like the first woman, like she doesn't know what a camera is, that somewhere in the world it is believed these things can steal a soul. Her arms are out, as if to say, you move them like this to fly, like this. See, her feet are apart. You can see the sphere of her hips, the delta between her legs. I look at her, sated, and think, this is the true work of the body, to adorn itself and be comfortable, unaware. I, myself, am bored of fig leaves, of shames I did not choose. So where shall we go next? I'm going to read a poem that I first started writing on my phone. I don't usually write like that, but sometimes I get fragments and I try to record them so that when I come back to them later, I can maybe complete something. But I think this one is probably the only poem that I have completed on my phone, because I distinctly remember remembering it and then copying it out onto a Word document. And I enjoy reading this one because maybe because of how it's written, it takes me back to that kind of mind state of being really in awe of someone. I guess you could call it a crush poem, but I just think that kind of emotional electricity is so visceral and so delicious to write about. So in honor of those feelings, I'm going to read Whose Name Means Honey. Whose name means honey? You are beautiful to me. You are beautiful to me across the table we have arrived at, in from the rain. No makeup on your face, but for the small, frail thread of something on your right cheek that I would like to remove for you, you whose name means honey. Every time you look up, and still it is there. I would like to be the one who says, hold on, come here, let me, 1 minute, stay there, almost, there we go, all done, perfect. And when you look up, and now it is gone, swept absent-mindedly off the face of the earth by your dark hair. Oh, I'm sad to have missed my chance. Date with no entry. Every way to deep it, but no way to swim. Natally wounded comes to mind. It had a nice ring to it. It left the mouth well. When you've done enough, are you the last to know? Sometimes the whole operating system is faulty. What are the subscriptions left to cancel? Junk mail aplenty. No, click here to unsubscribe. No idea who gave the devil your details. It's not you this time, it's the planets that are mad. You're okay, really. You just caught a ghost. What's yours is yours. What's theirs is yours too. A sadness so heavy. A sadness so heavy. Sticky and gum-like, color fast. Ignore and it will stay forever loyal to you. Act too soon and you'll seal it in for good. Scrubbing your bed sheets in the bathroom in shame. Sweetheart, sweetheart, when you've had enough, will you be the last to know? Is it love that you're seeking or permission? What will you choose when you can't have both? Is it true? Is it useful? A sadness so heavy? A sorrow like this needs washing on its own terms. The answer, not always hot water. Turn on both taps and cup your hands under, like in prayer, but open. Not right or wrong, but left and right, both you. Wash your loss at the body's own temperature. Observe how, like blood, now it runs. I'm going to read a poem called Stephanie, who's a friend of mine. We went to school together, high school, and we lived on the same road. And I've actually been meaning to call her and see how she's doing recently because I haven't caught up with her for a minute. So in honor of that reminder for myself, I'm going to read Stephanie. I walked past your house today on the way to mine. I thought I might stop by again, or we could talk a little or too long, until late preferably, until my phone rings. Somebody was in your porch calling to someone else inside, who was maybe your mother, your sister, or even yourself. And I thought about stopping by, but it wasn't your mother's car in the drive, and no, it wasn't your house anymore. We would walk to the park at night time. I would tell you to quit your job. What is a friend but someone to sit with on the swings out in the darkness? I'll read two more. One a bit chunkier, and then I'll finish with a short one. So yeah, that's it. The ultra blackfish. All right. The ultra blackfish. "200 meters down, the light stops. Many deep-sea creatures alive at this level of the ocean have developed the ability to create light for themselves. This is known as bioluminescence. Others, on the contrary, contribute to the darkness by adding themselves to it. Ultra blackfish are one example, and in 2020, 16 varieties of these were captured. The level of pigment in their skin was so high that it was found to absorb 99.956% of the light that touched it. Karen, a marine biologist, came across them by accident. Instead of hauling up the deep sea crabs she had been searching for, her net produced a fang-toothed fish that wouldn't show up in a photograph. Held later in a tank under 2 strobe lights, the fish became a living black hole with no discernible features beyond the opacity of its silhouette, as though it had cut itself out of the image and left. Scientists believe that the fish developed their invisibility to aid them in escaping their predators. Another theory suggests that the obscurity of ultra black fish enables them to more successfully catch their prey. It is likely that both ideas are true. Commentators have also speculated that the chemical structure of the pigment could serve the development of military and defense technologies. Nothing was said, however, about how ultra black fish find and enter into relations with each other. Nonetheless, their existence alone is evidence that, invisible as they may be to others, they are by no means strangers to themselves. Thank you so much. You've been a really kind audience. I think, probably the strangest audience I've had, where I do feel like I'm with you, but obviously I'm not, but I do feel that if I were with you, I'd be having a good time. So yeah, very grateful for your company in this strange way. And somebody have a gin and tonic on my behalf. Or whatever it is that you'd like. This last poem is called Dreaming is a Form of Knowledge Production. And it's kind of a kind of collage poem stitched of different dreams that I've had, different things that I've said at different points, just kind of all mashed together in a kind of dream logic, I suppose. Dreaming is a form of knowledge production. Nobody's immune to their ego taking the wheel. Dreaming is a form of knowledge production, and they don't want it to be that easy for us. As in, lay your head on a pillow, wake up holding something new. I said what I said, not what you say I said. Pigs are outside the house, but next door this time. It's not something our relationship will be able to survive. He doesn't show it, the cat, but he loves me so. He has the gene, but it hasn't kicked in yet. Another 1,000 years, all thinking and no feeling. Shut up about Freud. Thank you.
Victoria, thank you so much. That reading was an absolute treat. That was gorgeous. One more round of applause for Victoria Adukwei Bulley, please. Next up, lads, we are back in the room. We have Joseph Horgan. So Joseph Horgan was born in Birmingham of Irish immigrant parents and has lived back in County Cork since 1999. He's a poet, author, journalist, and reviewer. He's worked as a nurse for over 30 years. When I read that earlier, I thought it said he's worked as a muse for 30 years. The author of 7 previous books. Among his credits are the Patrick Kavanagh Award, twice being awarded an Arts Council bursary, his second book being serialised on RTE Radio 1, and his 4th book being a Poetry Society recommended read. He's been shortlisted for the Hennessy Award, nominated for the Ted Hughes Award. His work's been anthologised and published throughout Ireland, Europe, and the US. He's a columnist for the Irish Post. Most recent collection is In Praise of Urban Living from Salmon Poetry 2024. So we have a few copies of that up here. You can purchase one off Joseph. They're about €10, so you can have a chat with them after the reading. So, ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Horgan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, smaller. I was just going to crack into the first poem. I had it all worked up on the bus coming up from Skibbereen. I was just going to start. But I just wanted to say actually that I've worked in mental health for over 30 years now. And what I really felt this evening is this is such a lovely space and it's so supportive and it's kind of therapeutic just in its very essence. I just wanted to, it sounds like Plamas, but like honestly, that's what I really felt. And I was thinking about some of the people I work with, thinking, my Lord, I should bring them up here. But this is actually about a really good old friend of mine. I just wanted to say that in case you think I just imagined him, although there have been times when I wish I'd just imagined him. But, it's called I Love a Man. I love a man who drinks whiskey for breakfast. And you have to be a gifted kind to love a man who drinks whiskey for breakfast and write a poem for a man who drinks whiskey for breakfast. Or imagine flowers and the midnight dance with a man who drinks whiskey for breakfast, who has so much of the cosmos inside him that he drinks whiskey for breakfast, whose love is the love of a bear in the high forest, drinking whiskey for breakfast, who travels the snow line in a vest and pants, drinking whiskey for breakfast, who lies but is not dishonest, is true, and drinks whiskey for breakfast, who would gather the lost to him in laughter as he drinks whiskey for breakfast, making them all feel gifted enough to love a man who drinks whiskey for breakfast. Thank you. Seeing as I was saying about what a lovely space this is, and a room full of poets, my confession is I've had quite a difficult relationship with poetry over the years. You know, we've kind of been like uncomfortable neighbours in a way. You know, I don't know whether it's just the stress between trying to make art and make a living, which I'm sure everyone experiences. Not asking for any uniqueness about that, but just, you know, at times, in all honesty, like poetry's just got on my nerves. You know, like I felt the urge to do it and to write it and bring the books out. We'll just kind of get. I've never quite reached my peace with it. You know, I don't know what that situation. I don't know what situation is I'm actually describing, but I felt it more and more as the years have gone on. You know, that sometimes I wish you just wouldn't bother me, just leave me alone. And then you think, oh, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And then you think, oh, that's a quite nice phrase, or I'll just write that down, or oh, that's a good idea, or something. I got invited to many years ago to a lovely thing they hold down in Skibbereen, and I work in Skibbereen. And I was working nights, so I couldn't go. I think it's like it was like a 24-hour poetry reading thing. It was just a gorgeous thing that we did. And I wrote this slightly bitter poem when I was on nights one night as they were doing the reading. Working nights while the poets read. In another world, poets read, and they whisper sweet profanities to the planets, while the clock here goes on imagining the instant of the clock going off imagining, and the poets fool the midnight birds to song, cup madness in their palms, while the wish for life to vanish, and time limping forward stops, and alphabets stutter and dance, alphabets stutter, dance, and this show of glorious, utter uselessness as the dawn fully rises, as the poets read while the air shivers. This collection is. Thank you. This collection is my celebration of where I'm from. I should probably gather from my accents, I'm not from around here. Though my mother and father both are, they're part of that 1950s wave of immigrants who left, and so I grew up in quite a peculiar place. Well, I grew up in Birmingham, which, you know, it's where Peaky Blinders is set, if anybody, you know. And I actually grew up in Small Heath, where Peaky Blinders is set. I was never quite sure about Cillian Murphy's accent, which, you know, but anyway, that's. And it was like, when I was growing up, Birmingham was a city of immigrants. So it was an industrial city, and now it's a post-industrial city. It's always been a city of immigrants and immigration. And when I was growing up, the biggest immigrant group were the Irish, and so we had this massive part of Birmingham that was ours. It was like purely Birmingham Irish, and so and then we'd always come home with us. We'd always come back to Cork in the summer. And so, you kind of distinctly grew up in two places. And Birmingham's always had not a great reputation. It's not an aesthetically pleasing place. And it's never had the kudos of a lot of other places in Britain, you know. I wrote this poem about it, It sounds like I might have made it up, but it's a very direct experience. It's myself and my uncle Mihal, who live 3 streets away from us, and it's called The Maps You Took With You When You Went. When we tatted around the back, there was a kid in a derelict toilet, sniffing glue as if there was some film of urban deprivation. You smoked in the open air, unconcerned, the last free man. At home, the light beneath our sacred heart never ceased its red insistence, and those lost accents continued their meandering accumulation. Alcoholism, cancer, and accident waited. And I'm going back there now to walk the red brick length, the disused road to Mass, the cold, forgotten angels. And as I'm passing, I'll do what you did. Take off this shirt and fight myself bare-chested in the street. And this, thank you. So I grew up in the 1980s. I was coming of age in the 1980s, when the full force of Thatcherism was, her aim was to dismantle working class communities, and she dismantled working class communities, and I lived through that. It was like living through some kind of strange post-apocalyptic almost place. This is called after the Battle of Saltley Gate. It was just quite a famous incident in trade union history in the UK. It was the precursor to the miners' strike. They made the shed out of Cork and Roscommon, from sleepers going to Crewe, Preston, Sheffield, Newcastle on a moonlit day. Metal roof from Saltley Gates, coke stains leached to the sky. Men in the company of men of their own redundant time of work and shifts and drinking. The vanished class raising the roof, raising a laugh to the memory of itself. And I wrote this poem, which is just called, this one is just called Birmingham. And like I say, I just wanted to write a poem about it. Within the UK, Birmingham isn't seen as, I don't know, it's never seen as it's not a lovely place, but it has such a degraded reputation in a way, and I've always felt for the people, like, you know, that, I mean, I loved growing up there. It was great to grow up I have such fond memories of growing up in a really multicultural, vibrant place. I mean, there wasn't much of anything, but we had a lot at the same time, you know. It's called Birmingham. When we had finished in that cleft of rocks by a dirtied sea, you said that if there was an ocean, my running down your legs and your running down my legs would leak into it and be swallowed by gulls whose droppings would feed the plankton, that would feed the whales, that would swim away to Antarctica and mate in the ice with us inside them, until their running evaporated into clouds and came back to us in rain, and it would come back up our taps. So I rushed home with black oil on my trousers, and I drank cold tap water all night long. I drank you for as long as I could, sitting in the silence of streaming cars below, packs of them drifting by on the ring road, so that I could be in the Antarctic with you. We would always be in the blue ice, making noises no one understood. I did a cover version, which is, there's a fantastic poem called "You Bring Out the Mexican in Me" by Sandra Cisneros. It's just, and I just thought, well, musicians get away with it. They just do a, you know, blatant cover version. I think I'll just slightly adjust it and do my own version of it. I just stole it, you know. This is called "You Bring Out the City in Me," and it's after Sandra Cisneros. It's a little bit about my, I've lived in West Cork for 26 years now. After just living in very urban settings, I live in a rural setting now. And yeah, it's wonderful. But every now and then the city erupts from within me, you know. I came looking for a fox. The urgent smell by an orchard, and the flightless duck snatched beneath the old forest splash of a crabapple. But you bring out the city in me. The rich, stinking vinegar and the talk like knives flashing or shots amongst a nighttime map of lights. You bring out the shopping trolley and the canal in me. You bring out the moody, good-looking swagger in me. You bring out the political marches and the belly fire in me. You bring out the swearing made art and sprayed like graffiti in me. You do. Yeah, you do. You fucking do. You bring out the book in me, the one called Death of a Football Hooligan in me. You bring out the terraces in me, the swaying crush of identities tied to forgotten streets and factories in me. The eruptions of life like psychosis in me, the switchback blade of words in me. You bring out all the prizes in me, the nuclear explosion dream in me. You bring out dark streets in me, the waiting on the doorstep for a night shift dad in me, for a late taxi or a lost love in me. You bring out the slot machine thrown to the floor in me, the huddle outside the chip shop in me. You bring out the afternoon drinking in me, the knowing this will go too far in me. You bring out the tiled corridors of workers' pubs in me, the flimsy camaraderie in me. You bring out the great escape ending of this Steve McQueen movie in me, the city in me. Yeah, I think you bring out the me in me. I came looking for a fox, the deep coloured wild beneath trees, and the wind pushing through old paths, like everything mislaid, remembered. But you, instead, you bring out the city in me. My son mocks me relentlessly when I talk about where I come from. He just says, "Oh, here we go, more tales from the ghetto." But like I tried to say to him, you got the privilege of growing up Irish in West Cork, and I had to grow up Irish in Birmingham. It was a different thing. So just to assure him that I never exaggerate, I wrote this poem about the revolution I took part in. It's called "The Revolutionaries' First Takeover, the State Broadcaster." I don't have a radio show, Frank, so I can't simply play the tracks I like without a care for the listener, or dedicate a whole show to her. So what I did instead was put on a nightly broadcast and hope she listened, starting with Fred Voss and considering for a moment, live on air, Grace, red light blunt on the wall, the streets below in uproar, the presidential guard in retreat, making Voss the whole programme. But then I put on Jeffrey Lehman's Spring Forest, the early tracks, Lillian, the solitary tear in the starry night, Michael Hartnett's visceral, gentle catechism, Roy Fisher making jazz out of an industrial hole, Geoffrey Charlton coming home from a night shift, the anonymous Irish blackbirds scribbled in a margin, and I can hear the explosions in the distance, Frank, the sirens and the cacophony of the last helicopter leaving. And I'm on a roll with Auden, of course, refugee blues maybe, Brendan Cleary's Odes to Lager, and Tony Harrison with the Skinhead by the Grave. Keats and Yeats, Grace, yeah, they were on my side. And I even snuck in Silito, Kelman, and Anthony Cartwright, though strictly speaking, but what the hell? This isn't their frequency anymore, Lillian. This is mine. And I just stick to the work. This is my show. and no one plays any jingles. I'm the one here in the confessional, the studio, this holy place and these holy fools, this tumult, this ragged roar. I'll spin what I like. And she'll hear, she'll listen, Frank. Don't worry, kid. I know she will. There's just a couple here I'm just going to read. They're quite short. Ideally, when I'm writing poetry, my dream has always been if I could just keep chopping it down to nothing. I'm always trying to get rid and get rid and get rid. And it's hard enough to get a poetry collection published, but I do have a dream about if it was just white pages. It'd be so beautiful, wouldn't it? If everyone could just imagine it themselves, This is Lost Afternoons after Fred Voss, who is just a poet I adore. I wanted to be with them on a Sunday after Mass, getting drunk in Sunday best suits they'd arrived in, a fence life of women and children, further than corporeal, a chaser of distaste for themselves, for leaving in the first place. I wanted to be under suspicion because of my voice. I wanted to get up, half cut on a Monday morning, and go in to a job I loathed, looking for extra hours to justify so many kids on so many streets sounding like somebody else's son. I wanted the safety net of being from somewhere left, low-wage silence composing with little subtlety. I wanted those last afternoons to go on and on. Many moons ago, when I was first first sending off poems here and there, and to my bewilderment, getting accepted, I was invited up to do a reading, and I didn't really understand the whole notion. I didn't move in those circles, and in my head, I kept thinking. I was actually playing football that evening, and I thought, I'm actually going to carry on and just play the game. It's a very low level now, don't get me wrong. And I kept thinking, if I went, I'd just be really cranky because I'd be thinking I should be. And I wrote this poem in kind of strange kind of idea about the class stresses that come with trying to, like as I've just touched on here, about trying to make art and then trying to exist at the same time. They think that I will come stealing wallets and mobile phones, throwing chairs around the accident and emergency. I have to say to them that between here and there is a long list of leavings. The city remembers, I tell them, departures, goings, not belongings. Is he working out of town? And I am the one that left, I say, standing at the microphone, explaining why I use the words I do. We raise our glasses of white wine. Later on, in the accident and emergency, I am as surprised as anyone to find the chair raised above my head. There's a wonderful, thank you. You're very kind. There's a wonderful serendipity for me in doing this, in that, I just bumped into Paul in the pub. I don't come up to Cork City very often, and we had a rare night out. I was sitting at the bar, I'd had a few, and next thing I turned around and Paul was there, and the next thing the book had just come out, and he was offering me a reading, which was just kind of so cool. And many years ago, my dad used to drink in this pub. We often talked about the Long Valley. He left Cork when he was 25. My mum was 19. They went to Birmingham and stayed for 40 years. My mum's back now. My dad passed away. And that generation, the 1950s generation, that Irish generation who built the whole community I grew up in, are kind of, I don't have heroes in life, but they are my heroes, you know. I wrote this poem about my mother. The drunkenness of things being various. She likes the sound of her own voice, likes the way it doesn't quite fit the shape of wherever she is. It's not true enough to the place she left. The buddlier sprouting brick and the silent chimneys are all there. The sound of the factory inside her mouth. But not part of this place all the same. Whatever about the certain intonations and turns of phrase she has picked up. After all these years of sounding like someone else, she likes, as the years ahead drop towards silence, that she has all this history on her lips. Thank you. Yeah, if there's, I write about identity and belonging. It's a kind of obsession of mine, reflecting where I grew up and who I am and stuff. And you know, it's not to. There's no aspiration in it. It's just I'm just trying to describe the factual experience. So I've never, in the 26 years we've been here, and I consider myself to be an Irishman. It's the way I was brought up, is what I was told, and it's a huge Irish community I grew up in. But I've never tried to disown or get rid of my accents. I can't anyway. But and like I say, it's better than Killy Murphy's anyway. So it's called The Fundamental Facts of Modern Irish History. I have to go along with all the others, thousands and thousands away from the island too small for us all to live on. Quietly resigned to my role. I have to pass with them, from parents and brothers and sisters, to live in English cities and become every day the place I left behind, as every day the place I left behind departs. I have to climb into stereotype and work with my calloused hands and build a family with foreign accents and hold their skin to me beneath someone else's sky. I have to bless each day that I left and am left to feel that cardiac tightness slip upon me and remind me that home is in the past and I am always from somewhere else. I have to set fire to the decades, blaze through the contented histories, illuminate the Irish faces just to show they lived and left their existence, to light as bright as I can their passing. I'll just finish up there with a few more. Thank you. I'm not as much as I am obsessed about the idea of identity and what and who you are and everything. I mean, and the older I get, I'm really not a nationalist, and I find nationalism such a danger, such a threat to us. I think in it we lose our humanity. I've always thought that the idea of you celebrate to excess who you are, you're not really doing that. You're more saying to other people, this is not who you are. And it just makes you feel really uncomfortable. It's called The Streets Lighting Out of Me. I don't want to die for Ireland, England, Birmingham, or Cork. I don't want to die for any of those nations, cities, places, notions. I don't want to die for any flag. I don't want to die. But when I do, and I will, I've decided, I'll die for something I don't yet know. Not for belonging, which is only saying to the other, you don't. Not for nationalism, which is only a form of civil war. No, for something with those I love gathered by. I'll die for something on a headland, looking awkwardly out to sea and the waves of equidistance, the city streets sliding out of me, showing me the way home. Thank you. I'll just read a few here that are just really just a pure celebration of multicultural urban existence, which I think is so under attack now, which is a thing I experienced and loved deeply. This one's actually dedicated to my sister because she's the one who remembered I actually wrote this up in Dublin. I'd gone to do some. I don't really know Dublin. I know Dublin city centre, but obviously I've never lived in Dublin. I had to get a bus out to somewhere to do this community radio thing, and I didn't know where I was. I just had to cross over the road and try and get back out again. And somebody got on the bus who was, and the poem is about her, and it reminded me of other. I spent most of my formative years on public transport, so, and the bus is always great. It's just full of people. This is called Though When They Catch My Eye. I like the desperate for fags people. I like that we're all on this bus together and that no one minds I'm writing a poem. I even like the one who's threatening to find a fictional gangster from a television show and get someone fucking sorted out. I admit I even like her. I like the philosopher who sits at the front and says, "You've got to have a laugh, driver," at the end of every sentence she utters. And I believe she has empirically tested that proposition and found it to be true. I like her, maybe, best of all. I like the beautiful boy who's going into town on that first date, sweeping his phone and sweatshop finery as if getting updates from the stock market of his inner life, toying in his mind and hands with changing his status. We all love him a little bit. I like that the desperate for fags people and the philosopher and the driver and the beautiful boy and the poet are showing the true existence of society, and that we are all genuinely in this together, whilst hiring hitmen, laughing, and maybe, I don't know, having sex are all possible on a public transport that is, after all, the acme of social living in one place or another. I like all of this very much. Thank you. I'll just finish off with this one. And I would like to just dedicate this to, it's a little bit ambitious to say this, but I'd like to dedicate this to the electorate of France who stopped those fucking right-wing folks from getting elected. If this is called denoting those parts of the form that must be completed. If this was to be my last sodden testament, my rubble note, then I am citizen of places that never used to be, that have just come into being, of redefinition and reaffirmation, of small streams of reiteration and marginal fields, of false starts and blind alleys, of ill-drawn boundaries, where the inarticulate, waiting in camps, get their chance to inhale all the beautiful air of the world there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joseph. That was fantastic, really amazing. A massive round of applause again for Joseph. And for Victoria too, fantastic. Really. Cool, mighty evening in swing. So we have the open mic left. So we're gonna take a break, 10 minutes or so. So just draw your attention to the open mic list, which is up here. It's looking a little bit sparse, so if you could populate that, that'd be fantastic. And also the donation jar, if we get that going around the pub, just in a circular motion, get a little bit of a current going, that'd be fantastic. I'll see you guys up here in 10 minutes. How much stuff? Yeah. Adrian, how are you doing? Sorry, I'm calling you from down here. There's your 3 books there.
Oh, okay. There. Oh, cool. Okay.
Did you get a drink from the lounge?
I did, yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Really?
Well, brother.
What a day.
Hey.
What a day. I never thought I'd see 19 years. 11 sweet meat in the final.
We've only won yet, also.
We haven't won it yet.
No, we've beaten Limerick.
Feels like we're
Look, we've beaten Limerick. Lovely. Again, right? You think they'd give us no fucking cup?
Yeah, you think Claire would just say, look, lads, you deserve it.
It'll be a tough game, though. It'll be a tough fight.
It is Kira. They fired up. They're one of the only teams that could put it.
Yeah. Well, I think if we played the way we played yesterday, I'd be very chance.
Were you up with the camp?
It was with my aunt. It's not what happened, so
you see that? I'm on the hunt for
we'll be putting all this stuff. But I mean, yesterday, it was a setup, like, I mean, it felt like another fight.
Yeah, it was 80,000 people. 70,000 of them were support.
Yeah. Well,
that's more than the population of the stadium.
Yeah. Fucking mad,
We're like closing a ping pong machine.
Like Kieran Joyce, very good, I thought, aggressive. Fitzgibbon, amazing. Keeper, amazing.
Very good.
Shane Barrett. The guy who scored all the goals, Alan Connolly, he didn't score any goal yesterday, right?
Yeah.
He was very good.
Well, he did actually, and it was actually shown to have been palmed to him. The ref got that wrong, right? Completely wrong. So he did score a goal. Yeah, he was very good. Yeah, he was done well the last.
That's right. You know, he looked more like himself yesterday. But I mean, I thought it half time or something. You know, I thought we're fucked there.
Yeah. Then Declan Jones.
So he stretched the ball. There's the message on the line. It's a particular striking action that he's loved.
This is the other team 65.
I know, yeah. I know. And like then you have, you know, when we were in the second half, first 15 minutes, I was just saying like, just stay in touch, and we actually got down the lead, you know. Just stay in touch. Get it to 50, get to 50, get to 55, get to 55 minutes, and stay there, right? And then time to split up, you know. Sorry. And it just time sped up, then all of a sudden it's 65 minutes, right?
It was worth it, they're going to catch us in the story at the end.
Time, I was kind of just going,
yeah,
you know, I was kind of fucking spaced out on, you know,
Which is slowly.
Everything's in it. Everything's in it. It's actually not mentioned, but everything's in chapter. They go to, yeah, everything's in it. Yeah, you get there.
I was watching highlights actually the game or something.
I watched the full match of the game and afterwards, I watched the whole thing.
You go first.
A couple of things I know it's there. So, did you watch the rugby?
No. I just couldn't watch everything I wanted to watch.
Maybe the second game was on the
We're going down on Saturday.
Where are we? Down Saturday.
Very good. Good year, mate.
6 days, anyway. Well, like,
Very good.
you're going down for longer. You're going
We're going for a few weeks, yeah.
You would.
All the kind of enjoy.
Good man.
You can talk to me about this in my diary. Just give me a
Oh, we're back anyway. We're back.
So yeah, no, I would.
I was like, I question it.
I think all the leaders will be on this next Dawn starting this last thing. Yeah, you just don't know. Like the last day, we were in Ireland in 2021. I couldn't get it. Like, I'm only 40, so it was an ending. It's open, you know.
Last time we were in Ireland.
Cork.
Yeah.
Cork, there we go. What was for me is optimistic. I know, yeah, I suppose the thing with Northern Ireland as opposed to the semis is like you've got a lot of corporate interests, you know. It's an event, like it's an event. It's the things you could want to be at, like even if they're not bad, you know what I mean? Like yesterday, where we were sitting in Croke Park, there was lads around from Antrim, from Armagh, and a few Dubs, of course, like, as well as the Partisan, Cork and Limerick fans. Like, and I think they just came down to watch the match, you know. They love hurling, like they're from Northern Ireland.
They got it through their clubs or whatever.
Guess so, yeah. And they just, oh man, like, we love Cork off, you know. But it was, they knew it was going to be a fireworks.
I mean, it might have been from the county.
That's what they did.
Yeah. You know someone who plays in the other county. Because there's an allocation.
Yeah.
Highly in demand in Cork. It was Cork and Limerick. I think Cork care teams. Somebody in Westmeath could be.
Somebody, or Tyrone, like, you know that's Tyrone, you know? Who's in the GA? And who doesn't like hurling that much? That's how it all works. But no tickets for this. That's what I mean.
I don't know what the guy's written to the county board because he did it.
You have to have a
Alright guys, in about 60 seconds, 30 seconds or so, we're going to be starting our open mic. Cool, I actually think everyone's back, we're positioned, let's go. So first on the open mic list this evening is Antonio Di Mar.
Thank you and congratulations to Joseph and Victoria. Wonderful readings, wonderful poems. So my poem tonight is called Passing Over. This afternoon, the bus was behind the child. The father was running and talking about work. The child was silent. The father started to shout, regardless its son's attention. Waiting for the next tired summer. The sky is still light blue. The bus is coming. Next stop is close. The glass of the bus's announcement becomes of a purple phosphorescence. The hand of the child goes through, passing over, feeding the bones of the youth. There was nothing there. The hand of the child could touch the wall. With great disappointment, he started to cry of happiness. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. So next up we have Roger Gregg.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Roger Gregg. This is a poem I wrote 8 years ago. I used to know it off by heart, and I've tried my best to relearn it in the last couple of days, so fingers crossed. There we go. It's called The Clown at the Gates of Paradise. St. Peter stood by heaven's pearly gates, where an old circus clown was awaiting his fate, with holes in his hat and a bright red nose, no better than a beggar in tattered torn clothes. A clown with a tear near one of his eyes, who cried when he laughed, and laughed when he cried. Then he heard St. Peter call out his clown name, and he stumbled on up, his head humbled in shame. And Peter took out that big book of life and said, "Now, you old clown, let me get this right. For in this bright light, we shall see why you cried when you laughed, and laughed when you cried. You were a loony goon, a bungling buffoon, with pies in the face and twisted balloons. You struggled to juggle a few worthless balls from a bag of old gags through a lifetime of falls. A fool who had failed in all that he tried, who cried when he laughed, and laughed when he cried. Now other clowns, they made fortunes, puffed themselves up. They won grants and awards, gold medals and cups. Other clowns had power and towers with their name and TV shows that brought them great fame. And they used their big names to sell little white lies. Well, you cried when you laughed, and laughed when you cried. No, you were never a loud clown who blew a great trump and treated the circus like a personal dump. Never a proud clown who would brag and boast about the poor souls you had grabbed and groped. You were mostly ignored and even despised because you cried when you laughed and laughed when you cried. In the sawdust of sorrow, you planted a few laughs for penniless children who could never pay you back. And you ran round the ring for these tatty exiles with a bucket of confetti showering smiles. And you fought back the fear, and you kept hope alive. But you cried when you laughed, and laughed when you cried. Yeah, you were a loser clown, the butt of jokes, stumbling and bumbling for poor homeless folks. And you never stepped on your fellows to climb to the top. Like the sound of your shoes, you were just a big flop. So you died in the rain as you huddled outside and cried when you laughed and laughed when you cried. Then Peter closed up that big black book and gave that old clown a long, hard look and said, "Now I know why you have a tear on your face. You mourn for your follies, your failure and disgrace." And looking back, he could see he had failed as a clown. He was turning to leave when his trousers fell down. Then he heard a creak as the gate swung wide. "Well, don't just stand there," Peter said. "Come on inside. Yay, old fool, come on, step on through. If there is a heaven at all, it's for clowns just like you." A clown with a tear near one of his eyes, who cried when he laughed, and laughed when he cried. Am I allowed to do a shameless plug? Shameless plug. A friend of mine and I are doing a show next week in the Cat Club, the Cork Arts Theatre. It's got spoken word and poetry in it and stuff. So it's next week anyway. Plug. Sorry, I have to do it.
What's it called?
It's called From the River of Ghosts, and it's on in the Cat Club. It opens Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and Thursday and Friday they're matinees, and then Saturday night, the 20th is the closing night. So, thanks anyway.
Next up, we're going to go to Pam Campbell on Zoom.
Okay, this is a prose poem and it doesn't have a title yet, so gotta give this headless child a title at some point. Okay. The car pulls alongside me, slow like, staying even of me. It's buff black like my biscuit cleaned Mary Jones. I think it's Papaw come to carry me home like he does most days when Mama loses me. But it isn't Papaw. This man is smiling like churchmen do when waiting sinners to river baptisms. Smiles so big you can't see their faces anymore. Maybe he is a churchman come to take me home. The man stretches his arm out the window and opens his hand. In it is my favorite candy, orange slices. He says, "You sure are a pretty thing." I take one orange slice. His hand is soft. The orange slice is sweet in my mouth. He opens the car door and says, "I got more right here next to me." I take a step closer, but then this man grins wrong, grins in a way that whitewashes the Cardinals' cheer, cheer, cheer from the wide and empty street where no kids play or mamas stand in doorways watching. Something stirs deep inside, says run. Okay, thank you.
Next up, we have Adrienne Brock.
Hi. Sorry, normally if I stay for the open mic, I would stay till the end, but I have to go home early today, so I hope no one takes offense. I'm really sorry. The only thing you need to know is Xiuhtecuhtli is the Aztec god of fire. This is called In the Cameras, April 2023. And then he went down to the shop in Dungarvan to find a map, but there was no map to be found in any of the shops, and so he was late. My lift and I listen, and my lift nods his head, his heel on his bumper, then kneeling down, then rubbing at a spot on his sneaker as if he forgot that it can't be polished. Other maps are found. We begin following the river. One compass doesn't work. My tea, embraced by the silvered surfaces and gaskets of a thermos, falls into the drink. On the hill, the rain starts, and we seek to make sense of the random gray in all directions. At a certain point, it just becomes a search for oxygen. At a certain point, it is all feeling and the fiber in the thighs, pushing over rock and freeing ankles from the carcasses of heather that would keep us entwined with what has passed in stillness. I picture the volcano in Mexico, how my father and I were swimming over black sand, how the wave unexpected came over us and churned my light 7-year-old body into a space without breath, without up or down, until we surfaced at least 20 feet from each other. We stood and I could not recognize him for the new kind of panic on his face. The child me, looking right past my father, who had to duck to enter most rooms. There he was small, submerged in sea, beneath the volcano, with a name lost to us at the shore's edge. A lion's breath of smoke overhead. My daughter asks again and again if there are any volcanoes left in Ireland. Looking at the geological map of her home place, she sees the Devonian streaks of Burgundy, up north where they were tossed, and flaring in controlled burns across the south. Are volcanoes like bulls, she asks. Have they been here before? Did people make the volcanoes go away too? How do I know what contour lines Hephaestus might trace affectionately? or how Shetakutli, shaking off his many names and crossing the ocean, might set the heather to blaze again, might make it whisper in quiet heat. I cannot know what they would do, collapsing map to earth. Like me, they would be strangers here, but we would all recognize the smell of fire. Thank you.
Adrienne was our 5-word challenge winner earlier on today. Did you collect your prize, Adrienne?
Yeah, I did.
Mighty magic. So next up on the mic we have Michelle today.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks so much to the guest poets. You're amazing. Really missed you the last few months, lads. It was kind of a very emotional time actually. So there's a lot in the pipeline, but actually I'm just going to read tonight poem from a few weeks ago that I just really enjoyed writing about a scary snooker ball. It's called Cue Ball for my dad. Also, I will also have to scoot off after this, but I'm going to tune in on the way home on Zoom and listen to you on the way home, so I look forward to that. Cue Ball. A milk tooth, rock tumbled and polished, holds the room in a mirror hemisphere. Not half as humble as 2 hands cupping, but sharp as water waiting, badly bowled by boasting players claiming some control. In every game you could be conned by simple laws of physics. There's one way in which the water falls, how many holes are in your fist? The blunted tusk commands all predictions made. What force of my reserve is called? What's happening in his head? Eclipsing white planet, peel the panels from the walls, make those stood in satin curl around your ball. Crush us in your rolling eye, one scoop off the marble top, demolition ice cream wreck, adroitly drive the blind spot. The caliper's jaw spins 2 inches and 1/4 open. A season in his mother's womb, 4 fingers and the tummy's shaking, lean as his cue and stiff as competition. Table hasn't bent in 2, bowing backwards, ballerina stretching. The crack of the Reds racked, a great break, the sip before the story, potting 12 black back to back on the yellow my father told me. You can see through this obstruction lying center in your path. You can see if you imagine that the cue ball's made of glass. Garmila, Islam.
Next up, guys, can we have Patricia Walsh?
This is sugar. Sorry. This is for anybody who's ever been in a bad relationship. Like you, it's kind of like a deck of cards. It's kind of like a deck of cards. You know, you start off with 2 hearts and a diamond, and in the end, you wish you had a club and a spade. It's called Swastika Soul. If you come around, let it be said, I never wanted you anyway. Why would I spend disbelief if I can still think about you? The fragrant stares, the acid coffee breaks, contradictions being irrelevant, incongruities being swept a line to cement your party line. If I had to dispense with your teachings, I might be better off forging for arguments to suspend you with, while you twist the reed verdaten. The older it gets, the harder to fall, but you would never admit it, the fact that you were never slighted. The skin off my nose transplants any favours. A remembered hatred locks my heart against the window to minimize the damage of memory dripping against the collar. You have taken your place among the blessed, while I, alone, re-embellish the wound we dug together. Thanks.
Great poem, Patricia, but intro of the century. So next up, guys, we're going to go to Jeff Cottrell over on Zoom.
All right, I'm going to hit you with an oldie. This is a piece called Review of This Piece. Review of this piece by Jeff Cottrell begins rather unimaginatively with a straightforward literalism that desperately wants to emulate the tone of an educated critic, using terms such as literalism and emulate for effect. By the second sentence, you realize you're in for some kind of postmodern self-reflexive parody, but Cottrell quickly undermines the formal tone by switching you to the second person for no reason. The piece carries on, quite aimlessly, dragging on with the same theme, with an overly complex sentence that runs on and on and on and on, with no apparent sign of its ever having been edited right down to its most tight and clear and efficient form of verbal expression, but rather choosing to be redundant through repetition, more repetition, and saying the same thing over and over in different ways. Then, finally, there's a shorter sentence. But the damage has been done, and Cottrell finds himself flailing at the end of his first paragraph, yearning for a clever closing remark to make a transition, but unable to come up with even a modestly catchy turn of phrase. At this point, Cottrell seems to be aware that he has shot his whole load in the first paragraph, and thus, for a cheap laugh, resorts to such crass, vulgar imagery as shooting one's load. Then, the attempts at clever self-reference continue, but without any real accomplishment. Like a starving man reaching for one solitary breadcrumb he knows won't help him, Cottrell throws in a poor simile. On top of that, his attempt at a metaphor is a pathetic wounded animal, and his penchant for cliches leaves something to be desired. Cottrell cops out with the smug trick of pointing out various literary techniques by using those very techniques, but even supposing that were funny, he ruins the stunt by explaining it openly. The worst part is there's no payoff. Where is this leading to? Does he really think changing the tone with rhetorical questions can save this mess? So, on to the second page, the piece continues, and Cottrell is once again just looking for filler. You almost get the impression that he's trying to stretch the whole composition out to a full 4-minute length in order for it to fit in with many of his other stories and monologues, but he can't do it because there just isn't enough substance behind the theme to sustain a piece of that size. And even if there were, Cottrell would be better off simply ending it right there and leaving his audience wanting more. But does he have that kind of restraint and self-awareness? Of course not. He just keeps on writing and writing and writing, wasting everybody's time with the same thing over and over and over and over, even though he's clearly running out of fresh ideas. Even when he does finally come up with something new, the grammar he uses is real bad. In conclusion, review of this piece is a formulaic and forgettable flop, complete with gratuitous alliteration. It's just another one of Cottrell's contrived, indulgent, overlong, one-joke monologues without any real soul behind it. If only Cottrell had the courage to challenge himself and write something from the heart without being satirical or relying on a bag of clever but cold, shallow gimmicks, perhaps he could make some significant progress as a writer beyond the realm of Zoom open mic nights. Wow, I wrote this in 2007. And it says Zoom. Amazing how they do that. But alas, if this is the best he can come up with now, he is doomed to a lifetime of literary obscurity. And even if Cottrell is satisfied with that, the least he could learn to do is come up with better endings. Wait, I don't see any more. I guess that's it. Okay, that's it. That's it. Review of this.
Jeff, that was awesome. We thoroughly enjoyed that one. Thank you. So next up, we have Mona Lynch.
Thank you. How do you follow that? This is a poem about a man born in 1895 who in 1916 took the King's Shilling, joined the British Army, and became a social pariah, certainly with his siblings. I read it because it's coming out in Southward 2024. Sabbath ritual. He began his ritual with shoe polishing. Then, taking his cutthroat razor from its wooden case, he tugged the strap dangling from his hoop by the window. With controlled rhythm, he would stroke the razor up, tilt it on the way down, using the ball of his thumb to check. A satisfied surgeon. Placing it on the rigid wooden draining board, he would fill the rotund Toby mug with water hot from the kettle on the hob, lather the badger-haired brush on the lump of Lifebuoy soap. I had a father, but was sometimes fatherless, his nurturing diverted to his white-collared friend in a pint glass. Saturday nights he would spend drowning demons, horrors of war, survivor's guilt. Nevertheless, he rose early on Sunday morning to attend Mass, mingle with neighbours, dance the dance. Candy floss jowls sagged under shaggy brows. Grin, scrape, round the bends and skin the slopes. An equine toss in an avalanche of water. Job done. His youngest, his old Segotia, I'd approach, eager to see the finished job. Watch the light caress his face, showing divots, blood-stained paper, a shaky hand.
Next up, guys, we have Catherine Ronan. If you wouldn't mind taking the microphone, please, Catherine.
I'm going to read a poem called Symphony. Half-candle man, I worry about you as you worm yourself around others. Fall back, searching for old skin in dead grey cells of childhood and empty halls. I see your fingers mixing fruit in a bowl, adding extra cherries and peel to be more exotic on the tongue, as if to understand desire. Broken teeth full of windows offer their lace skirts to you. Batons poised ready for release. Dreams roll down countrysides. We gasp in one lost note of split orchestras. We wait for your light, your flickering light, to symphony, and then we can all begin.
Ben Thompson, if you could make your way to the microphone, thank you.
Must be shrinking. When I was about 14, a family friend that I was very fond of died, and it was a novel experience for me at that age. I went to his funeral and I remembered his funeral, and almost a quarter of a century later, I found myself living in North London, very near where he was buried, and I went up and found his grave with a friend. So this poem is about that. It's called Requiem for Dennis Bott. I woke because it was morning and because a child came in. I woke then and found myself a man looking at a child who had come in bearing her inheritance, a child's freedom of mourning. I was aware I touched a common thing, man looking at child, with a frightening thing, selfhood, that I should be here alive looking at a child. The dead don't see this, over us the flesh moves, like moss upon stones, we are the river. Do we contradict the dead, we living, they dead? The dead looked at their children and had eyes of life. We look on our children and will have eyes of death. We and the dead look together through life, through death. But why seeing here, now? Who? After 24 years, I came back to your grave. There were poems, music, and narration. 4 friends carried the box to a wild place under a tree. Unchanged, the wild place, the tree. I left, moved again, grew up, moved, had children, moved again, almost to that place where all that time your face and hands and feet had lain. Your arms, your ribs, the heart which gave up in you were lying perfectly still, and the clouds rolled over your grave. And for all you could hear, I was a cloud rolling over your grave. I bent down to tell you about all who had come after, but you were right. They were clouds, they were gone. Even on a bright spring day, sleet and rain appear. The living come in from the cold. But the dead, laid under trees, bare their chests to the rain, equally for the snow and the fingers of frost, their arms lie open in acceptance. We, the living, have decided that the dead shall bear the rain. They go out without complaining, as though suddenly become brave. In the vault, light breaks. In the vault, rain collects. The rain falls, catching the light which frowns out of the clouds like the eye of God, painting the child in the eye of the man. Light echoes between the objects of the universe, the ghost of matter painting the unreachable. All this light-painted world is not for the dead. Are they any more wrong than we are? Having lived and loved, they lie quietly under the flowers, not disturbing us with non-existence, accepting not our memories nor the remnants of love, but the long cold rain as light perpetual.
Ben, thank you so much for that. That was truly spectacular. Really loved that. So next up, guys, we're going to go to Zoom. We have Maggie Hull.
That was just beautiful. Made me think of Peter. I'm going to read Ballad of the Tempest by James T. Field, and I'll follow that with something that I've written. We were crowded in the cabin, not a soul would dare to sleep. It was midnight on the waters, and the storm was on the deep. 'Tis a fearful thing in winter to be shattered in the blast, and to hear the rattling trumpet thunder, "Cut away the mast!" So we shuddered there in silence, for the stoutest held his breath, while the hungry sea was roaring and the breakers talked with death. As thus we sat in darkness, each one busy in his prayers, "We are lost!" the captain shouted as he staggered down the stairs. But his little daughter whispered as she took his icy hand, "Isn't God upon the ocean just the same as on the land?" Then he kissed the little maiden, and we spoke in better cheer, and we anchored safe in harbour when the moon was shining clear. Legend tells of an invisible red thread that connects us to those we are destined to meet. Illusion beckons cautiously for wind to follow. She is weeding the garden of sea for relics of a sunflower, bearing ships to sail for the seraphim. On her mast is written the numbers of a vision. Watch as we swim against the moon with solar vision, streaming tissue paper light, shadow casting in blue cup offerings. Turn the last photograph upside down and read leaves from a teacup. See shards of a nursery rhyme fade into story as every child begins life as a circle. Fly back, blackbird, fly, dance through the dreaming from behind the waxing night while waning in weeping. See bodies shopping markets for magic beans trapped inside tin bottles made of glass. Watch the illusion of time play an SOS to plastic jellyfish made of glass as the lighthouse without light plays nursery rhymes to the eye, edit blinking thread strings of a red illusion. Yeah.
Thank you, Maggie. I also thoroughly enjoyed meeting your cat earlier in the middle of the guest reading. You were on the screen in the background, and there was a big orange cat.
Ah, yes,
through.
yes, Cat. He whenever I'm near the computer, he likes to take the screen.
You got a few glances out here anyway. So next up, guys, we have Suplu.
So, guys, I guess we all have one of these. I even think we should have one of these. It's called Magic Moment. The sky, pure blue, over the mountain dale. Breathtaking the view as we pause on the hill, beside tall, dark fir trees, still panting from the cycle, my sister and I. So quiet the air and clear, voices rise from the farm below, tractor plows the field, children call to their mum, neighbours talk in the lush front garden, a ball kicked down the path by a little girl laughing, her black dog barks. All these sounds conveyed by this amphitheatre, and above us circles a pair of buzzards, their proud cry echoing across the valley. This was the moment, my first time ever struck by that flash of inspiration, that urge to write with no pen nor paper until I found tissue and lipstick to note this magic down. Squatting next to my bike, my inner voice shaped the words to such allure they boggled both me and my sister. As we wheeled down to the stables in silence together, the wind rustling our hair, I was in awe, still floating on that clarity, that feeling, that surge of initiation, a new poem born, and a poet ignited, burning, hooked.
So we have just 3 left now, guys. We have Alexandra. If you wouldn't mind coming to the mic, please, Alexandra.
So forget-me-not is a type of flower, and it comes in all different colors, but mostly in like a bluish purplish hue and tone. And this flower represents love, memories, and remembrance. So this flower has 5 petals, and in this poem, the 5 petals will each represent a different kind of topic in my life. So forget-me-not is the name of this poem. The petals of a flower, so colourful, so vivid. Each variation holds its own memories, a living mind of its own. My memories bloomed 5 petals. My flower bloomed 5 petals, a remembrance of broken ties. Forget-me-not, whispered my devoted petals, for I shall visit you through midnight memories to remind you of your broken ties, said my petals unmercifully. First petal, blood. I was only young when I left my home, my roots ripped right out of its soils.
The memories of this pain hollow, but never forgotten. But as time went on, the walls grew higher. I climbed for years, reaching for my family on the other side. I finally reached the peak. The sight broke me. I climbed so high while my family stayed grounded, all except for one. Grandma, you climbed for me. No one else but you, my treasure for eternity. And to the rest of my family, goodbye, my petal, the petal of blood. Second petal, trust. I've made a few friends throughout this lifetime. Some were my saviors, while others wished my doom. Stabbed in the back by masked demons. The same demons who sewed and binded my broken heart. I pushed past those demons and never looked back. Goodbye, my petal, the petal of trust. Third petal, emotional safety. The breakable bond between a father and a daughter. As a child, I thought this bond is everlasting, but I was wrong. From security to uncertain love, I watched water turn to a toxic substance. Where his shine faded, so did our bond. The girl in me tried to save him, but failed. I cannot save a drowning man who doesn't want to be saved. Goodbye, my petal, the petal of emotional security. Fourth petal, home. This house was my home, full of joy, love, laughter. But now this house screams uncertainty. For one moment, the walls echo my joyful laughter. The next, the same exact walls crush me with its negative words. My body feels safe here, but my soul craves for emotional safety. This house will never rebuild itself. It's too late for that now. Goodbye, my petal, the petal of home. Fifth petal, love. For most people, a home is represented by a place. My home was a person, the love of a dark angel. But this angel showed its true colors. He clipped my wings and I no longer felt like flying. This betrayal hurt the most. I ignored all signs of foreshadowing because I believed in the light in him. From victim, I was turned into the villain. But I know my truth and you know it too. I freed myself from your lies and my self-destruction. Goodbye, my petal, the petal of love. You were my balance, my stem, the one that kept me alive and upright. But I shall be my own stem now, and I will grow another set of petals. Goodbye, forget-me-not, the flower of broken ties. You will be remembered for eternity, as a reminder of the strength I possess to climb from hell, not once, not twice, but 5 times. Forget me not when your new awakened flower shall bloom. Thank you.
All right, guys, so next we're going to go to Zoom for Massey's. Sorry, Ben, removing the mask in the background there. I hadn't caught that. Accessorized and everything, oiled up and ready to go. So we're going to go over to Zoom to Massimo. Massimo, how you doing? What's the crack?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Always an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. No more holy grail hunting. Worried if you don't avail at doing something stunning, then we'll say you failed at something. And maybe there's nobody but yourself that hails your coming. So don't be scared to just be frail and love someone or something, so that you can tell a tale that isn't based upon your suffering, but on the joy and love you bring. On the joy and love you bring. Different things we may have done may feel like different ones we've been, but the fact that we can change and stay the same is a wondrous thing. So grow to know yourself gradually and learn what makes you happy. Put the work in actively until it just comes naturally. Think about things practically until they happen magically. And if there's a glitch in the pattern, just make it part of the tapestry. To the squareness in our view, this life looks like a Rubik's Cube, but sometimes more like Play-Doh if the beauty is where it's misconstrued. Too curvy for perfect form and too funky for formula. So let the sliding scale slide your limbo to a utopia. I'm not saying just to sell out or settle out, just settle down. And give to yourself like there's enough of you to spread around. I'm not saying spend it up, lend it out, or pay it down. Just make it count without lifting more than your own weight just to save a pound. But enough with the uplifting. It's touching, but I just want to be done lifting. Done thinking wishfully about giving in or just quitting. Who's to say I'll be done living, even when I'm done kicking? But don't do as I do, listen, but don't listen. And don't do as I say, I'm not preaching, I'm just thinking. Just do what you're doing, and I thank you for existing. Maybe there's no holy grail, only you and what's not missing. Peace and love, thank you all so much.
Always a pleasure to see you, Massimo. Fantastic, thank you for that. Okay, so I think we're all very excited for what's coming next. I'd like to welcome the man behind the mesh, the mass crusader, Benjamin Burns.
The philosopher Thomas Nagel has an essay called, it's a famous essay called What's It Like to Be a Bat? Where he's like wondering what it's like to be a bat. And then he argues that it's impossible to know what it's like to be a bat. And it's a brilliant essay, but I think it's a little bit pessimistic. Like, what's it like to be another person? Yeah? And then I've been watching bats and listening to bats and thinking about bats. And then I like they're flying. So this is a poem. This is called What Was It Like to Be a Bat Boy? Like linking my experience to what I kind of imagine about bats. It's also, I should say, like it's an ultrasonic piece, but I'm gonna slow down my performance in order to make it perceivable. At 10, I pedalled hard. I was a pipistrelle with a red BMX for wings. I tore loops round the garden, cut corners, sprayed gravel, wore down grass. I was harried by invisible opponents, quick as light at the onset of night, quick as thought, or a bat who could execute wheelies with no wheels, force acrobatic adjustments mid-flight. I shouted and shouted at insects over sweet fuchsia rising who echoed code ended on my tongue, crumpled wafers between teeth, thin air buffeting the underside of my ears and against the undersides of my palms like a pair of feeling kites, or the palms of two calloused hands still sore from clutching the handlebars' dotted grips.
Thank you so much, Ben. Tonight, again, Cork sleeps safely, thanks to Benjamin Burns. So our final poet this evening is Philip Spillane, and then we're going to head over to the Crane Lane to Arthur Main's Wine Bar for a aperitif, not a nightcap, that's what I'm looking for.
We should all cosplay as our poems. Nice one, Ben. I didn't want to go last, but oh, and this is. All right, sorry, a bad boy. Nice one, Ben. Well done. This is a project I've been working on for quite a while, and it's an abstract from my story, She Begs, She More, and. I'm going to jump right into it, but I'm just going to say very briefly. So, Oisin and Danu leave Cork City into the fog. He climbed on the bike in front of Danu. She put her arms around his waist, her knees pressed against his body. Oisín kicked the engine and it revved. It still works. And they drove into the fog. Oisín drove his bike like a stallion. The engine galloped, and when it picked up speed, he felt so free. They rode down the Glanmire Road, and only meters were illuminated ahead, and beyond that was a veil of dense fog. "Where are we going?" he shouted. Without a helmet, he felt the drizzle bouncing off his face. "Where it's foggiest, we want to get lost." The street was empty. Oisín was confused. He felt the stretch went on forever. River Lee was faithfully whispering on his right. He looked at the wind mirror, and it showed what they left behind had vanished. They were going faster and faster and faster and faster, then bam! Oisín tried to keep his wheels still. Gradually, the bike slowed down. "What's happening?" "Not sure. There's something wrong with the engine." They stopped, and Oisín took out his phone. "There's no signal. There's a house. Maybe we should walk back. We couldn't have gone far." "Look, Oisín, it's the sea." Oisín looked around. The fog had begun to clear, and instead of the River Lee, it looked more like the open sea, all right. Big waves fighting around with one another. Maybe the dam has released a lot of water. That does not look like the River Lee, Oisín. Dan was right, but Oisín pretended to not recognize the rocky shore. "What about the cottage?" Oisín looked the other way at the strange building, the straw roof with walls painted red, a complete mismatch. "Do you want to try there? Could be fun." They both got off the bike, and together they dragged it to the footpath. Oisín tried to push start it, while Danu went up to the door and knocked. A small man in a purple poncho answered. He had hard sideburns and deep, deep green eyes. "Yo, I am Conas. How can I help you?" "Conas, I am Danu." "Ah, pleasure to meet you finally, Danu. Always wanted to meet someone like you," he winked. "And do I know you?" "I hope so," said the man. "Who's the boyfriend?" "That's Oisín, but he's not my boyfriend. We're stuck. The motorbike is broken." "Oh shit, sorry about that. May I ask, are you Danu of the land? Is that Oisín the storyteller?" Danu smiled. "Yes, I am," she lied. Ah, Conas didn't believe her, and then he walked up to Oisín. "Is she banjaxed?" "I don't know what happened. Are we far from Cork?" "I don't know where that is," shrugged Conas. "And where are we?" "You're on my island."
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. The 699th Ovale has now drawn to a close. We'll see you guys in Arthur Mains very shortly, and also on the 8th of August. Is it the 8th, Paul?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, the 8th of August, we'll be back here for our guest poets next month, who are Anne Atkins and Amy Rugg, who are over from Coventry for the Twin Cities event annual day. That's the 12th. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. False information. The 12th of August, Anne Atkins and Amy Rugg here in Ovale upstairs in the Long Valley. See you guys then.
That's